Hi, Reality Riffing. I sat down with grandmother Sarah. Sarah McLean Bicknell is an elder healer, teacher, and mentor. She has studied healing and ceremonial work in North American Indigenous traditions for 30 years and was recognized by the elders and her teachers as being a lineage holder. In 1991, she was adopted by ceremony into the Ghost Horse Hunkawea Lakota Nation. And she also incorporates her Celtic roots into her present North American practice. And I was able to sit down and really get a medicine from this great elder. She has been working tirelessly to bring harmony and balance to Mother Earth through her turtle ceremonies on Orcas Island, which she was initiated into, as well as all of the medicine that she's bringing as an elder. And she's an incredible woman, an incredible teacher, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Satnam, I'm so honored to be joined by Sarah McLean Bicknell, who's an elder healer, teacher, and mentor, and has studied the healing and ceremonial work in North American Indigenous traditions for 30 years. In 1991, Sarah was adopted by a ceremony into the Ghost Horse Lakota Nation and also incorporates her Celtic roots into her North American practice. Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a beautiful invitation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would love to hear just kind of your genesis story, how you came to your current iteration in your work.
I think that's a very fair question because I have spent the last 30 years of my life, or 30 around and about, in the sort of more involved and turned towards the indigenous practices of this land, of Turtle Island. And yet I am white. I present with white. And I come from England, and I still carry the voice of my people too, in the way that I speak and the way that is also in my bones. And so the journey's been really a weaving and an integration on so many levels. And I was born in Cambridge, England, into almost like a fairy story. My father taught at the university there. My mother was a ballerina. And life was extremely easy. And I was born as we were coming out of the Second World War, so the years of recovery, and where a lot of people were walking long distances across Europe to get home. And so I was born at the end of rationing, but these are things I don't recall so much. But these times when we are born is important about what was going on at that time, because it actually starts to form the way you see. And I've always been so grateful that I was born in recovery years rather than the rest of my siblings in the war years, because that allows a lot of hope and a lot of resilience around how we can come through really dark times and rebuild and renew ourselves as the human family. So I was there, I grew up there, childhood educated there, And then in the late 60s, when again there was a revolution of ideas and thoughts, I found myself in the United States. I came to help my sister, actually, because she was here already teaching, and she had, through the adoption process, arrived, and having her own, arrived as 3 children under 3 and needed help. So I came out, and one thing led to another, and I never really returned. I have gone back and spent 4 or 5 years, and so there's been a flow of to and fro. My whole family is there, except for the sister that lives in the States. But family, brothers, sisters, cousins, and so on, are still there. And so I travel to and fro and have done. But once I arrived, I sort of fell into the time that many of us do, of having family and of having children, and that being the sort of leading priority in my life and the leading way. I guess what might be of interest to you is at 14, I had this amazing godmother who had actually been with the Steiner School, but it had to in Germany, but it had to leave because of the Second World War. And she had a beautiful connection to not only the spiritual path of Steiner, but she also had great access to some of the older ways and the more of the ancient ones of the British Isles. And she recognized, she was the one that told me at 14, oh, you have the second sight. And I'm kind of going, what do you mean by second sight? And then we started a conversation, and I realized that what she was referring to was all the extra information I was seeing other than the physical seeing, but it had always been there. So it was just part of the way I saw the world.
Right.
She named it. But once I came to America, I had a family that sort of went on the back burner. She had told me, you will need to go to either Australia or to North America to learn more, because we have lost our way and there are many holes in our memory. And through working with either the Australian Aborigine or the Native American in the US, which at that time in the 50s or 60s would have been referred to as Indian country, you have the hope to be able to remember our ways that we have lost. So with that, I came to America, but I forgot all about that piece. I got caught up. I had children, I had a husband, I had a full life. And I would take the occasional, quote, spiritual workshop. I studied Western mysticism in that way. I studied a lot of different things, including some of the, I came into the knowledge of the full roundedness of the ways that have been kept underground, as it were, in Europe. I also learned more about the Buddhist path, and I just really at that time, sort of without conscious knowledge, educated myself in many different spiritual paths. Then my godmother crossed in the 80s, and at that point, I'd gone back several times, as I said, and I'd spent some years with her. But when she crossed, I was here in the States. And it sort of catapulted me into a very, very dark time for me personally. And there are many names for it, right?
Yeah.
Definitely soul searching. And what it feels like to really gravel along the bottom, and to find out that everything you've ever believed in isn't working out. So through that re-envisioning myself and is when I encountered, when I walked into Buck Ghost Horse and Wallace Black Elk, and they at that time claimed recognition, claimed they knew all about me, et cetera, and I'm just going, yeah, right. Very, very, very nice. Not a great way of trying to hook me, but I don't buy into it. then, but I really wanted to learn. I wanted to learn more about the ceremonies and many things. And so I continued to show up. And they sort of looked at me and they says, "We've got to unlearn you all the way." Mm-hmm. And so that's how my way into the indigenous understandings of life began, because they unlearned me of my Western thinking. And it wasn't an easy journey, because I had to be stripped of a lot. Yeah. I came from this very privileged white upbringing that was in my bones. And there was a call, such a big call for me to see things differently. And I am so honored and touched that happened for me, that I had that opportunity at a time when these teachings were hard to access and were hard, you couldn't just go get them for wanting them. And I am eternally grateful to the bigger mystery that laid something out so amazing, so complete, so beautiful. And I just stand in so much gratitude. I bow to the First Nations that have held on to an understanding that is way beyond Western mind of really what it means to be in connection, to really belong, and to really come into a vital conversation with all of life, and to be able to listen. But it took me many, many years, and I'm still learning. I can see myself as, boy, the ocean is is hardly crossed. But I look up and I smile at the direction. And it's a good direction. It feels like a whole direction, a rooted direction, and a grounded direction. While being able to open up to the bigger cosmic understandings. Mm. Yeah. Mm. So the other part that I would also include is that when I grew up in Cambridge, I grew up also around, my mother was a ballerina, right? So there was a lot of theater and music and art. And I learned at a young age that the hidden mysticism had been buried over the years of the Inquisition and the sort of more patriarchal takeover that happened in the 1700s and into the industrial age, into the arts, and learning to have huge respect for the language of poetry as being the one place that speaks of spirit and was kept alive by Wordsworth, by Shakespeare, all of those. Yeah. They kept the connection alive in a way that didn't get erased, that didn't get, there was so much of the women's mystery and the women's medicines that got completely erased, really cruelly and savagely erased. But somehow the arts was able to hold on to it. So it became known as folk dance. It became known as fine art, and all of these things. But there is amazing depth of understanding that is constantly looking at you out of those eyes. And I'm so grateful for being exposed to that and being able to walk with that. And so this has resulted in, yes, very immersed in Indigenous ways, and very immersed in permission and respect, but also a huge love of art. And every morning I include to read a poem. And it connects me very fully to the world soul, as opposed to a more of a national kind of understanding of it. So, yeah.
Who are your favorite poets right now?
I am actually in the moment in reading Linda Hogan, who is Native.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm sort of tucked into, but the list is endless. I don't have the sort of kind of brain that sort of remembers names and dates and things, never have had.
Yeah.
And So, I can't give you a whole list here, though I could write one for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she's the one this week, that's who I'm immersed in. Yeah.
It's funny that you say about this, that I'd never heard it quite said that way, that a lot of these mysteries, and these kind of pre-Socratic and then into the 16th, 17th century and industrialized times, went into the kind of the mystery schools of the fine arts. We were in St. Petersburg and we went to the ballet museum there, and it was one of the it had so much esoteric energy. It was kind of a surprise, but when you said that, I was like, oh wow, this is like through the Stalin, Lenin, and the communist kind of time in Russia, that was all kind of hidden in ballet and in the fine arts.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, it stayed alive. That was the only way it could stay alive. And this is the fabulous thing about human beings. We find ways to keep the truth alive.
Yeah.
And we're skillful. We're creative.
Yeah. So you mentioned two teachers. Were these teachers that you were with who recognized you? Are these the teachers that you were with in kind of your?
Well, interesting enough, they are teachers that are also surrounded in controversy, as you would imagine I am too.
Mm-hmm.
I am a woman. Right?
Yeah.
First controversy.
Yeah.
I work ceremony on, I hold the Night Turtle Dance, which is a big 3-day ceremony, night dance for women. I mean, it's not for women, sorry, it's through the women's medicine that the vision comes forward. And there is, it's a shame that I sit here sort of going, I need to carefully choose my words.
I know.
Yeah, but that's the era we're in, and I never wish to offend anyone. That's not who I'm about at all. But there is an enigma to me, and I have learned to sit in that and accept that as opposed to what else could I do, resist. But my teachers were Buck Ghost Horse and Wallace Black Elk, and they hold controversy themselves because they taught outside of the reservation, which as we came into the 21st century and there became the issues of appropriation and many other things, as the native peoples of the cities and so on returned back to their homelands and some of their ways, which had been my prayer all along. My time was this. What we were told was that we need some of you to hold the songs and to hold the ceremonies and to hold that place and connection, because in the late 80s and 90s, not so many of the native people were picking up their traditions. Yeah. Of course, there were some, but not as we see today. And it's so beautiful to see the blossoming that is occurring. And I'm the first one to say, if you have the possibility and the open and the ability and the access to learn directly from the indigenous native people, please do. Please do. There is nothing like it. There is nothing like it. But I feel sometimes I'm there for those that don't have access to that. Not that I teach, the native ways, but it has informed and affected and impacted my way of seeing and my way of life. Yeah. And so who I am comes through that lens. It can't not. And I'm in humble respect of where that comes from. And if you have an opportunity to sit and listen to the stories and to listen to the way of seeing from being inside a circle that is being held, especially by a native grandmother, please do. It will change your life. Yeah. So these two, they taught off the reservation and they were men. So it took me many years before I was able to access the women in these cultures, and to really be able to sit and listen to them. my sense and my experience, which isn't everybody's experience, was that they were very much sitting in the shadows and were shy to come forward. And of course, there's a whole history that is there, that is present. And wherever I walk into a space like that, I kind of bring that history a little bit with me, even though there is a bigger, more universal understanding. And all of the big Native voices that I have been in conversation with do not see those differences. Yeah, you can get into the bigger field.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I think it is an interesting piece of just these reincarnational streams. And do you have memory of incarnation with these types of wisdom traditions?
How I would describe it for me is that when suddenly in the spontaneity of the situation, I just know.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah.
It's not like I suddenly have this visual picture of who I was X many lifetimes running.
Right.
But it certainly is spoken by many of, certainly was by Wallace Black Elk. He says, "What makes you think you're white?"
Right.
It was always his question to me. What makes you think you're white?
Right. Right.
Yeah. He says, what if you're truly one of us, which he firmly believed, and you have chosen to reincarnate in the white to help the big atonement.
I'm getting getting some energy on that one. So is he still alive?
No, he died in, I'm not sure which year it was, but around 2006.
Okay.
And 2 or 3 years later, Buck Ghost Horse died too. But I have really, have always had a very close kinship with his wife. And that relationship, she's alive and well. And that I'm sure will continue until it'll continue on even beyond here.
So you spoke of this turtle ceremony that you do.
Turtle dance.
Yeah, turtle dance.
We just come out of prayer actually Monday night because of the times we're in and the particular lapping of the wave of COVID, whatever you believe that it is, was predominant enough that we just took. Some of our helpers that would live locally, we gathered together around a cornmeal turtle. We drew her out in cornmeal and cedar, and then we sat through the night in prayer because the prayer needed to be held, the prayer needed to be given. We also needed to share why it wasn't happening in the ways that it has happened before and that this was different. But it felt so wonderful to hold the prayer, which the prayer of this ceremony is love and gratitude for Mother Earth. We don't arrive in this ceremony asking for anything. It's about giving back. And it's a 3-night ceremony, of which the first day is the gathering of the people. And it's an open dance, which we really hope it will be next year, which means it's literally, if you write to us, it is open. And we hold it in the Northwest. And the first night is the gathering of the families and the gathering of the camp and the greeting. And for some, we see each other once a year, right, in this place. And then the second day, we actually build the altar, which is a 60 to 80 foot turtle in cornmeal, down to the detail.
Wow.
Geometrically perfect in relation to the stars. Because this particular ceremony is based on the constellation of Cygnus and its particular travel across the sky during the night sky. And so we build that altar, and we have altar is this huge turtle, which when we dance on the back of it. That's why it's so generous and big. And the fins are the water and the earth and the air and the fire. And then there's the head, which is the ancestors, and the tail, which is the south, which is to do with sexuality and sensuality and the giving of life and the entrance and exit of life, as called life being where we are physically. And so this, we do it, we dress it up, and it's beautiful. And we have this incredible star altar that's just outside of the turtle that is the connection between the stars and the earth. And, there's a long story about how this all evolved. But anyway, and then we leave it that night. We leave it in silence, and we leave it that night for the spirits to dance. That's their dance. And then the third night, we dance, and we come in, and we there are patterns that the prayer is through the feet, and the feet tap out these patterns like small turtle movements.
Wow.
Around on the back. And it's the story of creation. It starts with the opening up, it moves through the DNA, it comes into conception, the holding of the pregnancy, the fifth round is the birth, and then the sixth round is celebration. And the seventh closes the ceremony. And we go from not sundown, but dusk to dawn. Yeah. And as I said, it's about love and gratitude and an amazing heart opportunity to really just be in that wonder of life and the amazing experience it truly is, even in the midst of chaos and so on, that we even get to walk out every day and experience birds and trees and grass and color and life and light. You can't beat it. It doesn't matter what's, awful things are happening. Life is still there. And can you enter that? Can you just for a moment pause in the magnificence of that, the honor of that, the incredible sense of it? Yeah.
Wow. And you guys just, you finished just at the early part
We
of the
just
week.
did the prayer this time. We went and we just did one night of prayer, which for me, I had the gift of being able to, you might really identify with this, not having to hold space, not having to make sure everyone's okay, not keeping my eye out to see what's possibly wonking out the energy of the ceremony, intercessing it.
Yeah.
I got to literally watch the stars for the whole night and be in prayer. And it was quite magnificent. And to watch Cygnus rise. And there's a very key part in the dance when Cygnus is directly over the drum. And then we didn't have the drum this time, but at the big dance, we have a central drum. And for 10 to 12 years, we have done this ceremony with just women. And we got the message that it needs to integrate into family and men.
Yeah.
And we've been making those steps. And we now have a couple that hold the drum, a man and a woman. So it's evolving into the sacred marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's done it by showing us, not because we've been thinking it. It's like things happen during the ceremony. You kind of go, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that became very clear during the night of prayer that was the transition, and we should be able to step forward in an open and different way next year with one of my helpers' husbands is taking over the setting of the altar. It's just, we're much more integrated.
Yeah.
We've been involving children for a long time, and they have their own time and their own dance. But and they often dance the first round and then sleep in tents right around the altar during the night.
Wow. It's so funny.
Yeah, the Grandmother Turtle's all about families and children.
Yeah. It's so funny that you say this, because literally we were just talking about we have gotten the call that our women's gatherings need to open up to, they've always also had children, but they need to open up to all genders.
Yes.
And we kind of were dabbling in it, but I got very clearly, really over this Lionsgate, like right in the past week or so. We were up in
Yeah.
Mount Shasta in ceremony. I got very clearly, because men were with us, and it was very, that it's, this kind of the only way we're going to heal from a lot of the kind of trauma bonding, it's my new favorite term, of the Me Too, post Me Too, and then everything that's happening kind of in the wake of these pendulums swinging, and some of the, the very prolific victim consciousness that's happening on the planet right now. And part of the healing is that we have to bring the men and all genders involved in these times together.
I'm in total agreement. And through this Lionsgate, got the real confirmation. And I have really been taught, I'm so glad to say, to follow with what I hear and not what others say.
Yeah.
And to really stand in that confidence that this is what needs to happen. So I'm really excited to hear that that seems to be where you're also leaning towards.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
It's just like we have to flex, we have to change. Nothing can be held. And ceremony in particular, there isn't one way to do it. The way to do it is the way that it's shown in the happening of it. There are, as I understand it, I don't know how your traditions understand it, but there are sort of agreements with what I would call the invisibles.
Yeah.
About if I do, we will do this and you will do that. And in that agreement, things can happen for others. And there's a way of connection and there's a way of communicating and holding the betwixt and the between. And I really value the fact, and most probably that was the gift of being from a very different culture, that they encouraged me right off the bat. It's like, you're not going to do it our way. You're going to do it your way. You're going to do it how you see it. And we have confidence in that. That's why we want to put this energy out for you to take and to learn from and to be in. Because we believe in what it is that you're going to bring forward as being what is needed by life at the time that you're going to be doing it. Mm-hmm. So that was huge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I had a interview with an amazing, she's one of the lineage holders of Tibetan, Mongolian, Tibetan Buddhist lineage, and also female student of her teacher escaped with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. But I spoke to her last night, and she described lineage, I thought, in one of the most poetic ways I've ever heard, which is that, the river of lineage is running from the source and the ascended masters, the root gurus, however we want to describe, and then your participation in the lineage is this contribution that creates the continuation of the lineage. But it's a contribution into this river of lineage that
beautifully put.
It was very beautiful. I was like, right on. I just really felt very inspired by the way that she described that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
we've showed up at an interesting time in life.
Yeah. Yes. So curious about some of the other kind of, I think like when you're working with the Western mind frame and then teaching in the West and just all of the kind of interesting pieces of a lot of these intersections that have happened in this past kind of late 20th century, early 21st century, or if you want to call it the age of Aquarius, this shift from the age of Pisces to Aquarius. But You know, the Buddhists call it, the Tibetan Buddhists call it sacred outlook, that everything is a ceremony.
Right.
When you start to relate to yourself and others and your environments and your relationships in this sacred way. But I'm curious about how your kind of experience of ceremony has changed as you have come into other phases of your consciousness and your chronology, and just where it lands now.
It's a way of life. And I become more deeply impassioned about it as time unfolds, more and more dedicated, more and more committed, acknowledging that most probably at this time, there are less women that hold those places and spaces for others. And often for the Western world, it's accessed. When I'm talking about ceremony, my connection is to earth ceremonies.
Yeah.
Ceremonies that are very integrated and interrelated with nature and with what I would call more of an original seeing. So that's, Western world, when we first step out into our spiritual awakenings, whatever they are, we usually, I would say most of us initially, walk into the arenas that are held by men, into the landscape that they are doing a beautiful job with. But that is the first doorway that seems to be more open for us. And I have a feeling that's because we've just moved through thousands of years of patriarchy that, and Western world has taught us that. And so we attract that in as a safer place to start. And again, no comparison here, just is what it is. Mm. And I know what it took for me to be able to move into really coming into a deeper understanding of the feminine and the feminine medicine that could really only be carried by women because we're in the biology of a woman. And what was in the biology of the man, and how that sort of moved into a place of really beginning to deepen that understanding of what are the differences, and also what are the same. And how important it was to have people that were willing to stand out in front that could hold that feminine piece, because it wasn't as easily accessible.
Yeah.
It was more hidden, dark, shadow, right? More in the dark of the moon. And what did it mean to move it into the full moon? And it I realized that in some way, energetically, I was kind of set up for that. With being able to actually do some things in the full moonlight as opposed to in the shadows. So when I really connected with that, there's a lot began to manifest really fast. And so ceremony, I feel, is something that I can uniquely participate in and uniquely give. And I can see all the way back to the beginning of my life how I was prepared for holding space for people, just holding the love and kindness and the container of space that things then can happen within in a way that is ceremony, that is a place that people can go, that they are in the betwixt and the between. And of course, dovetailing with this so closely is that I've always been a dreamer. And the dream time is also very closely connected. And ceremony is dream time here in the physical sense.
Right.
Right? It's the same. Right. But we're able to hold it here in physical, which means our conscious minds are participating more, also our egos. But there is something magical about really sowing the seeds very physically and literally, right, into the mother. And I don't know. I can't answer why I have that understanding of how that all goes together and what's needed to put that together. I have, in my more recent years, accepted that That's an important part of what I have to share, and it's an important part that needs to come forward. So to answer your question, ceremony for me is a way of life. It is the way I see. It's the way that I act. It's what I feel is the people of the world, the family of the world is thirsty for. A lot of them don't even can access it. And we've, of course, lost, through Western education, we've lost a lot of our ceremonies and the understanding of the importance of that. And my elders said that when these times come, the times that we are definitely in now, they said there are things that will enable you to navigate your way through. One of them is prayer. The other is family. And the other is ceremony. So they said, it doesn't matter what path. Every path has spirit, has prayer, and it has ceremony.
Yeah.
And those are what are going to lead you through.
Well, I was thinking about, I mean, I don't think that this is understood maybe consciously by the majority, but what's happening right now is it's a straight earth initiation, and we have lost all initiation rites except for sometimes these days, some kind of semblance of a religious initiation rite, but the actual power of initiation has been completely lost. And so I do feel like the current circumstances on the planet are really a push for self-initiation and an initiation. It's a massive collective initiation rite if you so choose. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm helping people create their own ceremonies, to really try and bring them into the understanding of what ceremony is and the if I was to call myself anything, I'd say I'm a ceremonialist, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, helping people understand that and to find and to dream in their ceremonies and support and encourage them to do it. One of the things when I received the vision of Night Turtle Dance, that kind of, it came to me when I was actually on a very traditional Native vision quest, held by Native elders. And it came right at the very end, which is the signature of spirit for me, right? Very economical with their timing, It's like 2 seconds before you need it. It just
right.
But anyway, that was, just right at the last minute when I'd given up and exhausted myself. It's 4 days, no food, no water, and
right.
out. So when I shared the vision, because you bring that to your intercessor, they said, well, you have to do it once in order to honor where it came from and those that brought it to you. You just need to do it once. That's fine. And, and that's it. Well, it took me 4 or 5 years to even have the guts to do it the first time.
Wow.
Because there was a lot involved. It was a very big vision. And we started off really small, but comparatively speaking, but I needed someone to drum. We had no songs, all of this, and they all have arrived. I think we have like 40 or 50 songs now. They've all come through the ceremony specifically for the work. And and so after 4 or 5 years, and they said, oh, by the way, we don't have turtle medicine. You need to find an elder that needs turtle medicine. Well, I went, this is never going to happen. Yeah. In Mexico, I met my elder that carried the medicine, listened to my vision and said, oh, yeah. He says, let's hope there's lots of people getting this vision and doing it.
Wow.
And so I to and fro a little. I was procrastinating. I didn't want to do this. It was like way too big and just like, just really super uncomfortable. And the last time I saw him, he says, excuse me, you're not coming back till you've done it. I'm not going to work with you unless you come, until you've done it. So I came back with my tail between my legs, and my friends said, oh, we'll do it with you. Let's do it. Just do it for once. And suddenly the land popped up. Everything started to materialize with deep reverence. Sadly, the elder crossed before I did it. But I mean, I did it that year that I came back to do it. And of course, he's become part of the dance.
Yeah.
But yeah, we came back and we did it. And we had the 4 seasons that night when we did the dance. We had hail, we had thunder, we had rain, we had moon, full moon. There were warm breezes, there were cold. It was extraordinary, an extraordinary experience. And we were absolutely exhausted, soaked through everything, just like, wow, we did it. But it was like cost everything. And not very many of those people ever came back.
Yeah.
That's how big it was. Yet, some there turned around and immediately sat me down and offered cornmeal, which is the grandmother exchange, and asked me to do it again. And we've been going, and I think we're in our 13th year. And this year we did it differently, and we're going, yeah. So, because the elder said, if the community wants it, then I guess it's around to stay. So yeah, here we go. And we've actually taken it to Mexico. I took it back to Mexico 3 or 4 years ago to give honor to the one that gave me the push to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we were in the Yucatan, in the Maya village, and did it just outside. Yeah. And they joined us. It was beautiful.
Do you experience now, with many of your teachers and guides passed into the spirit realm, do you experience kind of that, Carlos Castaneda calls it recapitulation, but that you can go back into those moments of them giving you things, the teachers, and receive from them even now? Yes,
that's what I would call the dream time.
Yeah.
They will come, not all the time.
Yeah.
And certainly not necessarily when I ask them to.
Sure.
Right.
Never.
But they, when they show up, it's like, oh, okay, got my alert. Can I pay attention? Yeah. Yes. So I'd say yes, absolutely. The learning continues on in many worlds.
Yeah.
I believe there are many. We are so much bigger than what we appear to be here. Yeah. And in fact, I think that's more in operation, because when I look at my human state, my one that lives 24/7, it's not capable of any of those things.
Yeah.
So something, there's another sense.
Yeah.
That's in communication with others. Yeah, there's something else going on. Yeah, that's much bigger. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I would love if you are open to it. We'd love to receive of a prayer or any transmission from you, if you would be willing to give.
It's somewhat in the walking of my mind. In the old European ways, this is a time of harvest, and Lunasa is the English name for the ceremony in the beginning of August, which has to do with abundance and also the coming of peace. And, you could look out over the fields, certainly when I was younger, when they still collected them in sheaves across the field. You'd know how abundant it was by how much the field had yielded, right? Was it full, or was it kind of sparse this year? And so this was a time that people could relax just a little bit from when the food's, that the food is gathering in. There's plenty to eat at this time, and it's warm. You don't have to stay warm. Many things that allow one to relax and be in peace. And so that the cosmos is on a very different program this year. And so as sort of Pluto, Uranus, Mars, all these planets are kind of on a standoff up there energetically, and we're not disconnected. This is also, we are all in a kind of standoff. So we're in literally in the opposite expression.
Yeah.
And I saw when I came, while I was waiting to come into the room, that you're calling August Immense Grace. And I was going, and I would call it a time of potential peace,
Yeah.
and look at the expression that's going on out there on the world stage.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about explosions and how they are quantum leaps.
Yeah.
Because when we explode, or explosions, they happen to us, and we have a internal response, and where we were here, suddenly we're there. There was no warning, there was no ability to know that it was happening, no preparation, nothing. Suddenly you are there, and there is a gap between where you were and where you are now. And what are you going to do with that gap? Because you can't go back to here. It is impossible the way it has gone.
Yeah.
And so we are in, astrologically, a month of explosions. We have experienced them here in Beirut, and we've seen them also, I think it was Baltimore. We've seen the explosion of the thunder and lightning across the Midwest. There's been, we're cycling with Hiroshima, and we're cycling with Nagasaki, right? Just a lot going on. And also when I was in prayer and watching and also observing, when Cygnus was directly above us, there was so much activity, which is right aligned in where the two legs of the Milky Way come out. So much energy and explosive electrical energy going on there. Absolutely phenomenal. And truly being in honor of the explosion. So in that way, I will offer a prayer.
Okay. Thank you.
So to the great mystery, such deep gratitude that I know so little about you, if anything at all. But I bow to you, honor you, and love. To the sacred powers that hold this physical life experience together, such an honor to be part of your dream. Deep gratitude for the winds that come off the oceans, the winds that come down from the snowfields, the winds that come with the rising sun, and the winds from all of life's breath here. To the creepy crawlers, to the birds, to the four-leggeds, to the trees, to the medicine plants, to the human family, to all of the families and nations of stone, heather, and fern. To the growing harvest of fruits and vegetables, of grains. Such gratitude for this time in the northern part of the world where the sun is strong and warm. Gratitude to all of those that have come before us, all of the dark times that have come before us. For we are alive today because there was knowledge on how to do that at that time. That resilience lives in our bones. My prayer, may we remember our resilience and our strength, along with our kindness and our courage, and that we are one human family, pierced in a tipping point of life here, holding the balance. May we do well. May we know which actions, each one of us, in our own little ways to all of the big ways, that we take, that we have the courage to take, that walks us into a more brilliant version of ourselves, a bigger version of life here that sustains with deep respect and honor of all life. To all those that are reeling in the shock waves of sudden change, head-reeling change, explosive head-spinning change, change without warning, cycles of past explosions, re-exploding, imploding. May you find within the ashes of where you stand now the grace and beauty of life in all of her forms. May you have courage. May you have love. May you feel the support of loving prayer and light all around you to encourage you, to help you stand up, and to bless you to move forward in whatever way you can, and to not look back. Help each one of us to struggle, to stand tall in our struggles. Let us remember that we will do so because we wish to live, and we wish to live well, and we wish our families to live well. May we all stay focused and continue to be empathic witnesses, knowing that in any time, in any instant, the unpredictable, the savage, and the shocking wildness can come and pay each one of us a personal visit. For we are in these times, grandmothers and grandfathers, that you have told us through the stories, through time, that you, our ancestors, have been through before and before. Bless each one of us to remember our resilience, to remember our courage and strength, to remember that we indeed are a circle of light, of inspiration, of hope, and of brightness that absolutely can and will reform, reimagine, redo the way that we are here in life. For we are committed to holding this life dream here, this physical earth dream together, knowing that it won't look anything like it has, and that is good with us. Let us pray for us all, and great blessings, that for us to know that right now, each one of us listening here, we are together, and we are in such good company. Deep gratitude to all that has created this time. Oh.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, and thank you for everything you're doing for this planet and for all that get to experience and touch your work. So thank you very much.
I deeply appreciate all of the ears that you have opened up to me and opened up to whatever it is that is coming through me. It's a deep honor. I know I've been following your work because I like to follow women of spirit that are willing to step out and say, I am here, and be willing to be in the full moon. And so grateful to all of us. And may we continue to talk. May we continue to meet and share and continue to contribute. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And will you just speak, we're going to link it too, but will you speak your website and where people can make their travel plans to be in ceremony with you in 2021? And
as soon as we are allowed, I would love to. It's my full name, Sarah McLean Bicknell .com. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, sarahmcleanbicknell.com. That's my website, and I'm building a virtual community of which I'm learning ways of doing ceremony online. I am recognizing that as we move into this next iteration of ourselves, that technology needs to be included.
Yeah.
And there's been much traditionally that has excluded it, which never works. I'm one of the practices I do, most of my travel is around constellation work, family constellation work. So that and dream work. But yeah, so learning different ways to really connect in this landscape and to really open up the hearts in this, and to be able to mark the passage of time with ceremony. And so developing a community online called the Village Green, which you can also find on my website, where I have dream time. You can come with your dream. There's various things that I offer live, and then the recorded things. But working on what it is to bridge, and it's the fabulous part of it is that anyone can join from around the world.
It is. It's really a blessing.
Yeah,
It's
and I
really
have
a
community
blessing.
in Europe, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's really, yeah. Do you enjoy that piece? Well, you've been doing this a while.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's the light side of the technological age. There are dark side pieces, but the light side, the major brilliance of the technological age is this network of connectivity that's so easy in the quantum field.
Right, what we're doing now, it would have
Exactly.
been much more strenuous
Exactly.
prior to technology.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, such an honor to sit with you, and I know that we're going to see each other more. And
I hope so. I'll let you
yeah.
know when I'm in LA.
Yeah, and I would definitely, I would love to come in and do this turtle ceremony. It sounds
Oh.
incredible.
Come
I will.
and bring your friends.
Yeah, we will. We will. So bless you. Thank you. And
Bless you
see you
too.
soon.
And bless all those that are connected right now online, and those that will listen to the recordings, because virtually, if you understand it, it is the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Reality Riffing. These are conversations that I think are important with people who are doing great things in the world about subject matters that need to be discussed. If you enjoyed the content, the conversation, please feel free to share with your people, share with your friends and family, rate the podcast below, and also subscribe.
Freud, Jung, they pop up with certain types of concepts that we now know as modern psychiatry and therapy. Where does parapsychology fit in this timeline?
The psychologist says, let's figure out what that particular arrest was. And you essentially, as I say, go toe to toe with it. And you logically try to analyze it and talk it out so I can come to a more comfortable resolution of that particular stance. The parapsychologist says you can remove that stance and create a new stance. That's the difference between the two systems. The stars are positioned in such a way where the mind is internally directed. So you have on your smartphone more information than a person in the 1800s would ever have encountered in their lifetime. You have it right in your hand now. There's now levels of different thought forms that are much more dominant in your perception, and you need to know how to navigate those because of the pressure they create on the psyche. And that creates a lot of people who are very anxious and kind of get strung out. So it became very popular to medicate in some fashion the wider population, which is why we see the legalization of certain drugs and so forth, is because people need some kind of relief from the psychic pressure of all this data. How I organize all that data, how I organize the thoughts, that it gives me my success and happiness, or it gives me my misery and my suffering. And parapsychology gives you a kind of the beyond position, if you will, where I don't have to logically go toe to toe with the toxic thought form. See, and then I'm just essentially I spend my life trying to be on the positive side of the negative thought form. You know, I'm always an alcoholic, and I try to be sober one more day at a time. I'm still toe to toe, face to face with the toxic thought form. I haven't gone beyond it. And the parapsychology is the tools to take us beyond it. And again, what's going to prove that it works is your experience. And that's why we want to teach this, and we have teach it at length, so people have a very experiential understanding of it, of really how to move out of these toxic locations and then be free of them. Because the human has the absolute capacity to be free. No one needs to be imprisoned by anything that happened to them in the past, any conditioning, any programming, any behavior. They don't need to be imprisoned by that, but they've got to use the right tools and the right technology to get safely out of harm's way. And we know in the Kundalini system, we have those techniques.